For over a decade now, developer Remedy Games has been on a quest to find its next major success since creating Max Payne. Collaborating closely with Microsoft, it started with Alan Wake and ended with Quantum Break. Both games were characterized by an emphasis on atmosphere and storytelling, though never garnering the critical acclaim they so desired, nor the appreciation by Xbox's fanbase, which aren't always known to be the strongest proponents of narrative-driven games. Therefore, it came as quite a shock but made sense at the same time when Remedy suddenly appeared on stage at PlayStation's press conference of E3 2018 to announce their new IP, Control. Teasing yet another dark and intriguing experience, many fans hoped that expanding their reach to new platforms and audiences would finally mean the studio could get the recognition it always deserved. But simultaneously, Remedy's new move showed visible signs of doubt. By teaming up with 505 Games, a relatively small publisher not known for AAA blockbuster franchises, the developer clearly had trouble finding one of the default partners that would put their faith in this new idea. Would Control live up to Remedy's standards? Would it underdeliver or possibly be able to outdo them? From what I've seen, nobody was really certain. Well, over the last 10 days I've been able to play through the entire game, completing the main storyline and finishing nearly everything else it offers. If you'd ask me, Control is a more than enjoyable ride, though heavy performance issues and an unignorable sense of missed opportunity deep in my mind make answering the question a complex matter for me. The entirety of Control's story takes place in a government building called the Oldest House. Although appearing like any other skyscraper in the streets of New York to its civilians, residing inside are dark secrets demanded to be kept hidden from the general public. This building serves as the headquarters for the Federal Bureau of Control, an organization which collects, contains and studies paranormal objects defying the laws of science. You play as Jessie Faden, who initially searches for a lost brother, but finds herself suddenly becoming the director of the bureau after discovering the dead corpse of its former one. It's a rather confusing twist, but then again, confusing may just as well be this game's second name. Jessie is accompanied by a mysterious entity in her mind, who guides her and is used as a means to inform us about our many current thoughts. In terms of atmosphere, Control establishes a truly great and unique mood. From the building's atmospheric lighting, the way its rooms will physically alter, the creepy vibes given off by opera music coming through the janitor's radio, which you always run into by accident, to the bold text displaying the name of a new area. All these elements work in perfect synergy with each other. Though not a scary game, it can at times be a bit unsettling and catch you off guard.
You can't let this happen. You can't let this happen. You can't let this happen!
This mysterious approach of the game absolutely shines during the opening 2 missions. It finds a great balance in, on one hand, gameplay encounters and on the other, interesting story moments. These are backed up by intriguing visuals and beautifully directed camera shots. However, this is also where we get to the most disappointing aspect of Control, because if you're a fan of story-driven single-player games like me, the shine quickly fades away a few chapters in. Scenes that appeared so original at first, like seeing the blue glow of the former director reflect across the hallway, become rather formulaic over time. You'll constantly re-enter the same abandoned motel for a puzzle, or the same alternate realm to learn another move, to the point where the experience stops feeling like the unique, impactful treat that it once was. Additional characters that are introduced lack much of a personality, while Jessie herself has the odd habit to constantly state the obvious, like its writers don't have faith in us as the players to understand what's going through our mind ourselves. Even more of a pity, a steady amount of story-heavy scenes are swiftly replaced by an overabundance in combat, the cinematic camera work by an RPG-esque conversation system that feels lifeless in comparison. And so, as you truly begin to find yourself taking control, the story sadly takes a backseat. That's because Control, unlike Remedy's previous projects, is not a linear game. It features an open map you can freely explore at all times. Clearance levels prevent you from being able to access every part of the building, however, until you progress through particular parts of the story that increase your allowance. There are 4 large different sectors, each containing several checkpoints for fast traveling. Next to the main story, you can complete side missions and extra content at your own leisure. That being said, whatever you end up doing tends to come down to the same thing, as combat forms the main gameplay component across the board. Your enemy is the Hiss, a paranormal force that has infected many employees of the Federal Bureau. It's up to Jesse to take care of them and restore order to the oldest house, while in the meantime figuring out what happened to her brother. Combat can be split up into two separate pillars. First up is gunplay. At the start of the game, Jesse acquires the service weapon. It's the sole piece of equipment you will use throughout the entire adventure. The reason why is because the service weapon is an advanced piece of tech, enabling you to put it into several modes, essentially transforming it from a single-shot pistol into a full auto assault rifle, shotgun, and a few other settings on your command. In the menu, you get to select the two modes you prefer the most, and what would usually be the reload button is now used to switch in between them. That's correct, reloading is not an action you can manually perform. Instead, your gun automatically reloads by giving it time to cool down. You can imagine how many times I accidentally ended up switching weapon modes, being so used to hitting the button routinely in other first and third person shooters. The second pillar are your paranormal abilities. Launching objects is the main one you'll likely use. Jessie can grab any object in the world simply by raising her hand and throw it at an enemy to do massive damage or break its shield. There is a melee attack, a quick evade, the ability to possess enemies and have them fight alongside you, and a few others that I won't reveal. Most of these will be acquired as you play through the story, though some of them are actually locked behind side missions. For example, I hadn't even discovered the final power until after I beat the campaign. All of your abilities can be upgraded with attribute points that you collect by finishing missions. Whether those pertain to the main quest or side storylines, the amount of points you receive is generally equal, which means you will enjoy an advantage by straying off in between. If, like me, you end up largely focusing on the golden path first, then you'll probably find yourself only about 40% of the way to being maxed out by the end of the campaign. The difficulty is actually limited to just one single setting, so there are certain fights which can be quite rough if you don't possess the useful upgrades. Oddly enough though, sometimes you will complete an objective, navigate back to a checkpoint, and that's where Control places one of its more difficult fights. But then, after getting a game over screen, I'd be teleported back to the save zone without even requiring me to give it a second shot. Kinda weird. At first, Jesse's movement system and mechanics can feel a bit floaty and imprecise, but this is something you'll get used to by the end. Health does not regenerate but is dropped by enemies, which is a good thing because it forces you to stay on the move. This playstyle is encouraged through different enemy types as well. Some will come rushing at you and explode upon impact, other ones with a glowing red aura will heal their teammates, making the fight immensely tougher unless you take them out first. The platforming could have probably had some extra work, but the combat becomes very fun and satisfying the more powerful your abilities become. Again, combat is your main component here, so I'm happy with the way it was done. To keep this gameplay loop addictive, Control has quite a few RPG systems in place, very reminiscent of games like Destiny and The Division. For example, you can assign up to 3 different perks to your gun depending on its current upgrade level. These can increase its damage, rate of fire, accuracy, etc. They are divided in tier levels, and I would constantly compare new ones I found to my current in order to make sure I maxed out my percentages. Jessie herself can also receive stats improvements like extra health, energy and a bigger efficiency of power usage for her abilities. All of these perks can be collected in the office from square-shaped containers that literally look like loot boxes. They've even got the satisfying opening sound and animation, but fortunately you won't be able to acquire them through other means than by simply playing the game and finding them scattered across. Like I said, each of the gun modes are also upgradable, my small gripe being that it's not clear how to work your way towards them. They simply require certain materials that are dropped by enemies or found in a game, but you're never really told where and how. I loved using my gun's spin mode, which turns it into an assault rifle, but I wasn't able to upgrade it to the maximum level until the very end because I had no clue where to find the damn house memory material. Every now and then, this gameplay formula of Control is interrupted by puzzles, but they are sporadic at best. A lack of any hint system, nor clues given by the main character, can mean you will get stuck for a while trying to figure out the solution in an attempt to exhaust every option you have at your disposal. It took me a little over 8 hours to beat the main campaign, consisting out of 10 total missions. Next to the main story, there are a fair amount of side activities. You can help the janitor clean up the mess around the building, study other objects of power, and every now and then we'll face some difficult but spectacular boss fights. There are also bureau alerts, the game's equivalent of random encounters, which you can accept upon receiving a notification. You then make your way to the destination and clear the area of any hiss infiltrating it. Lastly, at every checkpoint zone you can accept 3 board countermeasures, which are personal challenges pertaining to combat for more upgrades. They could have proven to be a great inspiration for trying out the different gun types, but any of them can be abandoned and traded in for a new one. In summary, you can just keep refreshing challenges until you get one that fits your already preferred playstyle. The trophy/achievement list is essentially your typical open world one. By beating the campaign, playing all of the side missions, and using those points to unlock every ability upgrade, the platinum should pretty much be in your possession. Being tasked to obtain 120 unique collectibles seemed like a pain in the ass at first, but turned out to be a breeze, given the total amount of them in the game. Now, the graphics of this game are gorgeous. I already mentioned the atmosphere with its minimalist use of color, but things like the particle effects coming off of any object lifted up and thrown away by force truly make every moment a visually striking sight. However, as a result, there are performance issues, and be prepared, glaring ones at that. I started off playing the first 2 chapters of Control on my PS4 Pro. Initially, I ran into few problems other than the occasional freezes switching from game to menu, visible texture pop-in to the point where an object right in front of you could take multiple seconds to fully load in, and audio that could sometimes appear out of sync. This could be fixed by hitting the options button and simply letting the game catch up to itself. That being said, I've been playing the rest of the game at another location with only a regular PS4 available, and only then did I notice things I otherwise would not have even known about. On the original PS4, the frame rate is downright atrocious at times. During particular missions, during fights with heavy explosions, and in open environments, the stuttering can truly be felt. We're talking about just a few frames per second here. For a game that focuses so much on fast reaction times and staying in motion at any moment, there are chances you'll experience a few deaths for which your own actions cannot be blamed. Obviously, future patches could and likely will resolve this, but as of now, playing the current 1.02 version that I did, the issues are large enough for me to warn anyone who this can be a deal breaker to. In the end, I enjoyed my time with Control. It's a fun game to play with a unique, mysterious setting, but at the same time, I'd be lying if I said that in the back of my head I hadn't hoped for a little more than that. The story plays an important role at first, but ends up feeling underdeveloped due to a decreasing focus on the narrative, with dull additional characters and the main protagonist eager to express even the smallest little thing on her mind. It reminds me a bit of games like Mafia 3 and Metal Gear Solid 5, games that started off incredibly strong, only to make you aware of the grand potential they ultimately couldn't live up towards anymore. Control's rare moments of brilliance tease a what could have been scenario that makes all its other parts look worse off in comparison. The game would have genuinely benefited from a bit more focus on the elements that make the experience stand out. Remedy's desire to provide a completely open space to traverse at your own free will, a huge list of side objectives, and exhausting fights has only had a detrimental effect on the overall package. Had more time been spent on fleshing out its characters, focusing on those artistically inspiring moments, and improving the sometimes unnatural character dialogue, this genuinely could have been an amazing 8-hour ride to be remembered for many years to come. The huge potential hinted at by a great opening hour ultimately makes the rest of the journey seem like a slightly missed opportunity. The game we got instead may still be good, it may be twice as long, but in the process it also became half as memorable. To make these videos possible, your support is vital. If you enjoy all the content I create, please consider supporting me over at patreon.com/robingaming. For just $1 per month, not only do you help me in bringing you high quality and fully independent content like this, but you also gain early access to each video and other cool rewards. In the current climate of YouTube, where sponsorships and clickbait are the norm, I hope I can count on your help to keep me going. Thanks for your support.